What up, y'all? It's Joe Budden, here to talk about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to win real money while watching football. You can get up to 100 times your money.
Prize Picks will give you $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code SPOTIFY. That's code SPOTIFY on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play a $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Lehabah's sacrifice allows Bryce the time she needs to kill Micah. But when the Ox doesn't come to arrest her for the crime of killing Valbara's governor, Bryce is terrified to realize it's because the Horn has opened portals for the worst demons of the pit to rise up and terrorize Lunathion. While Bryce attempts to help those who are helpless, most of the Ox are stuck following protocol, and only the canine shifters and some of the Viper Queen's Fae guards come to assist her in her attempt to aid the humans of Asphodel Meadows. In an effort to save Ithan, Bryce sacrifices her ability to secure herself in a bunker and must reveal her deepest secret to close the portals to hell. But when only one portal closes and Sandriel makes it clear she has communicated Bryce as a threat to the Asteri, Hunt seizes the opportunity and help from Hypaxia to wreak havoc on the remaining archangel before he leaves to save Bryce. The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author.
This podcast is a discussion shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of the many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, series and extended universe spoilers may be discussed with or without warning.
Explicit language as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
This is part 1 of this week's episode. Stick around for part 2, which releases on Thursday. Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk, a podcast where we deep dive into the writing of your favorite novels.
This season, we're exploring Sara J Maas's first installment in the Crescent City series. This is Jac.
And I'm Amy. This week, we're discussing chapters 80 through 89 in House of Earth and Blood.
This week, we ask ourselves, are the various elements and surprises convenient or earned?
Themes we see in this section include forgiveness and equals.
Before we get into chapter 80, I want to point out that the following chapters, we cover like 9 or 10
I know.
in a really short amount of time.
Yeah.
It makes that, not only does it make notes easier for whatever reason.
It really does.
But it's also a fun stylistic choice that SJM's making, considering how much is going on. And for me, there's 2 reasons to this. One, a lot is happening in a short amount of time. Word and page real estate is real low. You know, you can't spend too much time trying to describe the way her hand looks reaching out for saving Ithan or something, right?
Right.
And not going into detail as much as she has in other scenes is really important to keep that real estate low. Also, keeping chapters, they're now 1 or 2 scenes. Before, there would be like an entire day that would pass, or half a day, but like you get 5 different scenes within one chapter. And right now, only the most important information is being shared. And it's a very efficient way of writing. Reason 2, it's just as jarring for the reader as it is for the characters right now.
Yeah, and what that does for me is it creates momentum. We get caught up in the action along with Bryce. And the shorter the scenes, the shorter the chapters when done right, it makes things more fast-paced.
Yep.
And I think SJM does that really well. And I agree. It just makes writing easier for some reason.
It does. And it's funny because this is like such a token thing for SJM that people always say like the last 100 pages or the last 20% of an SJM book, it's all going to go tits up.
Yep.
This is it. The tits are up.
This is it. And you know what? You can't stop reading. Like, even I read 3 chapters and I was like, wait, I have to take notes.
Yeah.
Like, I was just so caught up in it.
Absolutely. So when you go back to the start of chapter 80, the scene starts fresh from Lehabah's death and Bryce is focused. And the description shows the urgency and the focus and the fact that she's like ready to hone in the animalistic side of her. Quote, Bryce's fingers curled into a claw at her side. The red lights of the alarms washed over her vision. She welcomed the synth into her heart, every destructive, raging, frozen ounce of it. And that's like, when you think about like they describe as like your eyes clouded red, or you're only seeing red. That's like when you're so angry. And when you're hearing alarms, it's almost like alarm bells for Micah. Like, oh, you're about to really get it here. And also the fact that Bryce fully accepts that fey side of her, that animalistic side. She rejects the light, the metaphoric light here. Quote, she grabbed the handle and hoisted herself upright, yanked the door open to the golden light of late afternoon. She did not go through it. Golden light, not only is she talking about Taylor Swift here, but also it's the fact that it represents safety and salvation. It's the route and path that is free of bloodshed. Granted, I think, it's Hunt makes observation of like there is no running away from Micah, but that is a potential. She could choose not to fight, and she doesn't choose that. She chooses the bloody route. But then later in this episode, she does choose light, but it's her starborn light. I just like the little metaphor there.
Yeah, I like it. We also talked last week about the color of gold being the color of right.
Yep.
Or goodness. We saw that in the Asteri and all the Asterian guard all having gold armor, sitting on a gold dais. And this projection of we're right because we wear gold. We are the best because we wear gold. And I found it interesting that SJM chose to describe the sunset as gold, or this light that Bryce could have gone to as gold, because she's using it as a distraction. Like, Micah assumes Bryce is heading towards this sunset away, safety, because she thinks she's in the right for, disregarding him. Instead, where we see gold used to demonstrate Bryce's goodness and rightness is the golden bullet of the Godslayer rifle between her teeth. A symbol of the true good, and that she's about to use to kill the fake good. And she's like an animal with a bone in her mouth. She dominates the weapon by putting the bullet in her mouth.
Yeah.
And because she's just really well trained.
She's a good animal weapon.
Good for her.
Yeah. You mentioned the gold bullet, and it's almost like everything that was referenced earlier is now coming into play. The knock included, now that that's gone. But we have the antidote, and we have the Godslayer rifle, and we have the bullet saying Memento Mori, reminding you that like you're gonna die. And everything that we're seeing, it's like, of course it all comes into play. Like the antidote was next to the bullet. The thing that she's been talking about since the beginning, and it's part of the conversation we're going to have at the end where it's like, it just comes together?
Yeah.
Or is it convenient?
Yeah. It's
dun,
classic
dun, dun.
SJM.
It's classic SJM. It's just, but again, like, it makes sense. And then even the Memento Mori, right? That it was, quote, a reminder that you will die. They seemed more of a promise than a mild reminder from the meat market. And it's just poetic. It's the fact that, remember you're going to die, and she's about to shoot Micah. And I like to imagine Juspo was the one who went to get that engraved, where she's just like, I think this adds drama.
She has a flair for the dramatics.
She does, right? Like, who goes and gets that written on a bullet? I love
Jessica.
it. Jessica. She's a queen. Icon.
We have to remember that the reference to Memento Mori is being told from Hunt's point of view, who was also the same person through whom we've seen Memento Mori at the meat market. And at the time, he saw it as, don't give a fuck about what you do. Like, you're all going to die anyway, so let's get wasted or whatever the case is.
Yep.
And to me, this is showing a change in Hunt's perspective from that initial moment at the meat market, that he has respect and fear for Bryce.
Yep.
In this moment, and her tied to this phrase Memento Mori more so than he did when they were at the meat market, because he assumed she was the vapid party girl.
Yep.
And assumed that she was going to get wasted and deal drugs or whatever the case was.
Yeah.
Going back to your point about how everything from earlier in the book comes back into play, Bryce's skills with the rifle are believable in this moment, because we know from her anecdotes that she's been trained by Randall, that she couldn't move to the city until she proved her training to Randall. We know that Randall is a great sharpshooter because Hunt has respect for him. We've seen Bryce at the gun range with a bullet and being able to outdo everybody at the gun range. So all of this, for me, and this leads into our later conversation, but just a reminder, it is believable that Bryce could, in 2 seconds, line up a shot and kill Micah.
Right? And those 2 seconds were given by Lehabah. Okay.
We're not ready for crying yet.
No, we're not. I don't think I'm going to cry this episode.
Okay.
That was the least assured okay. The killing of Micah, it's almost like a religious experience. Not only is Bryce killing an archangel, she's killing an archangel with a gun called God Slayer. And she's also running on blind faith, aka her abilities. Quote, Hunt had never seen anyone assemble a gun without looking at it towards a target. And the next quote gives me almost like she's taking a sacrament or she's doing a prayer. This is like my point of view from growing up Catholic. Quote, rising onto her knees as she braced the God Slayer against her shoulder. I mean, talk about like my childhood.
Having only gone to Catholic Mass twice, and only because of your grandparents.
That's it?
Passing.
Yeah.
It's the only time.
Wow, good for you.
Well, and then I guess your mother's wedding, but that doesn't count. Because it was shortened, I think.
No, I'd count it. It was shortened, but yeah.
It was just a lot of up and down on your knees. And my old lady body can't handle it.
You know, no one can get on their knees like a Catholic.
Oh my
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. If you didn't want that joke, then I don't go to church now.
It shows.
Yeah, Mom, that's all right. I'm okay with that. But, you know, thank you for understanding where that's coming from. But, like, everything here, like, there's a certain amount of reverence, especially when it comes into the concept of time. And time in this chapter, and even more so in the next chapter, it's discussed pretty heavily. So, going into this quote, not a chance to run. No, there would never be any escaping Micah. Lehabah had offered Bryce the 2 extra seconds she needed to kill an archangel. I mean, I also appreciate that it shows like Bryce did not even hesitate. Like, it's just putting it together, sit down, immediate gunshot. And here, time is valued, time is sacred, and the actual death, time is long lasting. And SJM is playing with the concept of the meaning of time, of almost like not having enough time, but also pausing it. Like, just, she has a lot of fun with this idea of time, it's slowing down, what the meaning and significance of what's actually happening here.
And there is a lot of significance in this moment. If we think about it from a power perspective, there is a lot going on to disrupt the balance of power that is normal for this world, right?
Yep.
If we think about it from the perspective of life and death, Lehabah's death, those extra 2 seconds, gave Bryce time to access her power, the ability to put gun together without looking at it, the ability to get into the right position without any time, the ability to pull that trigger confidently.
Yeah.
There was no lack of confidence on her part.
There was not even a beat of hesitation.
Even Hunt is like, whoa, shit, I've never seen anybody do that before.
Right? I just love that it's our human side that kills him.
Exactly. And that's what makes this moment so powerful. It's a sprite who is a lower using her power to slow down an archangel who's supposed to be the most powerful, other than an Asteri, and then a human using a man-made weapon
taught to her by
a human
yeah,
to kill an archangel.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really powerful thing.
Absolutely.
On the flip side of Lehabah's death allowing Bryce the ability to kill Micah, Bryce's life and willingness to live was required to kill Micah. And what I mean by that is a lot had to happen to get Bryce to this moment, including her not ending her own life the way she had wanted to, the willingness to give up Lehabah and to choose her life, choose Bryce's own life over Lehabah's life, to be able to get to that gun and kill Micah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of power that's happening right here. I also want to point out that in this brief moment, Bryce is able to use magic because of the synth. She's able to summon the pieces as she's running on a phantom wind, which we know is a sign for maggots.
It's a sign for maggots.
A sign for magic that allows Bryce to embody the Godslayer. She becomes a Godslayer who is godlike. And I did have a moment pause where I was like, it would be hard to imagine Bryce not wanting that. If she had known about synth prior to Danica's death and being able to access that.
That's an interesting thought exercise, because tapping into that taps into her face side and she resents her face side.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what day of the week.
I think it does too.
Yeah.
I think it does too. And then before we move into chapter 81, there's Micah. Despite all of this, underestimates Bryce so much. Not only is he convinced that Bryce ran, he's still convinced he's the most powerful. He's also convinced of Bryce's stupidity and inability to best him. Like, and fair enough, she's made some pretty dumb choices in the last 50% of this book. And I think it required her to make dumb choices or make bad assumptions so that Micah could be convinced that he would outsmart her.
So the Bryceism this week is make bad choices to then make a good choice.
And no, I think we'll get
but I think you're right, where it's like he had to be, it all had to make sense. And it had to make sense that if Bryce was super on top of it, super clever, he would have not underestimated her.
Yeah.
But because she's been sloppy, he does underestimate her.
Yeah. Quote, the governor whirled toward the open front door to the trap Bryce had laid in opening it, so he wouldn't look up, so he didn't have time to even glance in Bryce's direction before her finger curled on the trigger. I really do think if I had to pick a Bryceism, it would be, don't put all your cards on the table.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay for them to assume you're dumb.
We talked about that before.
We talked about it early on.
Yeah. I love having people assume that I'm dumb and then hurting them with it. I mean, using it to my advantage, not hurting. I would never.
Emotional harm was done. Maybe.
Yeah. No, I'm making sure that is correct. We enter chapter 81, and we're still in this concept of time. Quote, the death of an archangel of a world power could shudder through time and space. A second could last an hour, a day, a year. And that just makes all of this happen in slow motion, which I forgot it did, like which is such a cool idea.
Yeah.
Because I can see this happening in like a movie, where it's done in slow motion. And like, for whatever reason, I'm imagining all the people in the summit, like staring at one another, like, what? Like a glass of water floating in the air.
Yep. Feels almost like Inception, but also Wanted.
I was thinking Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay, fine.
Bryce's murder, murder. It's not I mean, I guess it is a murder. She kills him.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's encouraged. It's done in slow motion. It's meant to be cool. But I think it's also really meant to drive the point home to the reader that she's the one who's killing him.
Mm-hmm.
I think the actual killing of Micah with the bullet, it almost happened too quickly.
Yeah.
In the most perfect way possible, because it was just jarring of like, wait, what did she just do? Did that actually just happen?
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have to have this really play out here. And quick tangent, quote, then Bryce stood at the office's blown out window, a sword in both hands. So like, because it's only ever mentioned that she has one sword, and that's Danica's sword. She doesn't say there's another sword. So then I'm like, okay, is it a sword in both hands? And I'm holding a sword with both hands, or a sword in both hands, and now I'm waving both of my hands around as if I have two swords.
Yeah.
Do
No,
you see?
it's a great point. I assume it's a single sword with both hands on the pommel. However, it is poor editing because it's not clear. Because I can see how you could read it and be like, oh, she's got two swords, one in each hand.
Because that was, that's my little special tangent where it was like, when she started slicing, I'm like, oh, okay, we're one sword. Okay.
One sword. Got it.
One sword. It's a sword in both hands. Thank you.
Just like it says.
Thank you. Yeah. Bryce killing Micah changes Bryce at her core and how Hunt views her. Quote, Bryce leapt from the window and into the showroom below. She raised the sword above her head, then brought it down as she fell. The image of Bryce coming down and then using the term, quote, she fell, it reminds me of the fallen. Like she too now has fallen herself by bringing down the power system, the patriarchy, just bringing down the big bad. And Bryce is like really good at killing Micah. Like,
she's so talented.
She's so talented. Visionary, really. Whenever I watch a movie, I'm always like, stab him twice or shoot him twice. Like, she did it more.
You know what? She is a master at her craft.
How many parts of him? So we have one down the middle. That's 2. And then we have
one across the waist.
So that's 4. And then across the head again.
Yeah. So that's 3 cuts.
Yeah.
That's 6 pieces.
No, she made sure.
She made real sure.
And it's a really brutal way of killing someone, but also effective, if I do say so myself, because she needs to make sure he's dead. Now, that, though, is not how Hunt sees it. Quote, was this the first sign of it? Her madness? This pure frenzied rage? Like, because right now this is like Hunt watching her being like, oh my God, has the synth gotten to her? This is it. This is her rage. It's like, bro, that's just her.
Yeah.
Like she has some rage and that's okay. But I think we can see how Bryce and Hunt differ, right? Like Hunt views this killing as madness and frenzied rage, and Bryce is just very efficient.
Yeah. I had to take a moment to write, and I don't know if this is really feminist perspective, but in my mind,
Okay, all right.
It is an assumption, I think, often made by men that the feminine attention to detail is like, oh, she's a little crazy. Oh, she's like, no, sir, I'm being thorough.
I mean, and there's like this thing of like that trope. I don't know if it's a trope, but, people say like poison is a woman's death. Like women choose to poison with that's how they kill. And no, women can stab too.
We can be violent.
We can slice you in half. Equal rights. But it is very much a like, she's weaponizing the feminine.
Yeah.
By being thorough. And this is another moment when we see how they're going to struggle moving forward. That's Bryce and Hunt. Bryce will do what needs to be done, and then Hunt is going to struggle with it. Quote, and yet in her eyes, he saw no haze of insanity, of self-destructive frenzy, only cold, glittering vengeance. Which is funny because it's like he's going to go and rip off Sandriel's head, and it's like, we call that double standards.
Yeah. I was like, sir?
Yeah, he's like, oh my God, she's so frenzied and crazy.
Yeah, you're no different.
You're worse. You are so less efficient.
He's also going to be way worse with like his like anger.
Yeah.
In Sky and Breath. So
absolutely.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself, sir.
Take that, Hunt. Bryce is killing Micah. It is really aggressive. You know, I can't deny that. Because like I said earlier, she slices his torso and then again in his head after cutting him in half. And, you know, there's also beauty to the death of what's happening. Like, you know, I know this is all from Hunt's perspective, but I think he can't even deny the beauty because it says, quote, the archangel's blood rose like ruby bubbles, showering Bryce's face, filling her screaming mouth. And whether she wants to or not, she's like kind of feasting off of his blood.
It is a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, is it gross and could you get blood transmitted disease through the blood? Sure.
I'd risk it. Oh my gosh. Like
to kill Micah?
Yeah.
That's fair.
You know? I mean, I'm more of like grossed out in the sense that like, I mean, maybe his blood tastes different because he's an archangel. I don't want to think about that.
Just wait till you read Bride and maybe you won't be so mad about it.
I'm fine with
I knew you would be. I knew you would be. I also want to point out that, again, we're seeing this from Hunt's point of view. So for Hunt to call the blood like ruby bubbles, rubies, to me, it conveyed that this is a moment to be cherished.
Yeah.
That this is a precious moment that he is going to remember forever.
Oh, one day I'll get her rubies to remember this moment.
Honestly, I would expect it.
Amy talked before about the meaning of rain in previous episodes, and we both talked about the meaning of showering and how it represents a new beginning. Here, Bryce is being showered with Micah's blood, and it's a new type of beginning, which we'll see as she no longer holds back, and then kills a bunch of demons with her powers. Like, it really does mark the new beginning of Bryce.
Yeah.
I was trying hard not to clap my hands.
I saw.
New beginning of Bryce. I'm just proud of her.
To me, it also, through this almost like baptism of blood on Bryce's part, is this, again, if we go back to this idea that Jac had at the beginning of the season, that Bryce represents Luna, and Crescent City is Lunathion, Luna's city.
Yep.
This baptism is also representing a new beginning for Lunathion with the changeover of the governor and eventually Bryce's own status as royalty.
Yep. You're saying the word baptism, which makes me go back to, I'm like, oh, and she's having the blood of, which Catholics love.
Oh, yeah.
Having the blood of Christ.
Yeah.
Sip that wine. That's what.
We're not saying Micah's Christ, though, guys.
No, but just more of that, like, religious.
Yeah, religious undertones.
Undertones there.
Yep. There's also something very sexual to me about Bryce killing Micah. And I want to, I don't know if you're going to be on board with this, but
I can be.
I'm going to try. It's very intimate the way Hunt describes Bryce's body movements during this, and quote, he saw each movement of her body. So it's like he's there with her, watching her move. And remember, this is all in slow motion.
Yep.
Her body arcs almost like it's in the throes of passion. And when she drives the sword, quote, through, cleaving a path into his body, just made me think of penetration. I couldn't help it.
Yes.
And then, quote, Hunt savored these final moments of her life, which is rude because he's assuming she'll die. But it just felt like, you know how sometimes from a man's perspective, when you get smut, like how he savors this moment, he savors the climax. That's what this felt like to me.
Yeah. I see it.
Ultimately, do I think Hunt is turned on by this? Yes. Do I think he's worried for Bryce? Yes. Do I think he's a little fucked in the head? Yes. But I still think he's turned on by Bryce killing Micah and that it comes across as sexual to me. Also, later in the scene, quote, vengeance incarnate, wrath's bruised heart, she would bow for no one. Hunt's lightning sang at the sight of that brutal, beautiful face. I mean, he's just so into it.
He's like, yes, do it, babe. Slice him good. I'm sorry. I thought you were crazy.
I want you to be in pain, but I want you to cause pain. I want to be in pain.
I want us all be in pain together. I felt like there was a lost opportunity when you're like, Hunt is fucked in the head They
They
said.
said. Oh, that's true.
But you'll find the real thing instead.
I'm sorry.
Patch up the
I'm
tapestries
not
that I
at the
shred.
top of my game.
It's fine. Bryce disposes Micah's body in the best way possible by lighting it on fire and vacuuming his ashes. After her intense slicing and shooting, Bryce composes herself. She's described as being calm since she clearly has a plan. She goes and gets mattresses from her desk, more ownership here in readiness, and then she lights him on fire, waits, he's all crumpled up, and then decides to vacuum him. And this goes back to what I said at the very beginning, where she weaponizes the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the ultimate moment of that. And I just have to read this because it's so iconic. Quote, "No one, not even Sandriel, spoke a word as Bryce took out the vacuum from the supply closet and erased the last trace of Micah from the world."
It is one of the best chef's kiss moments of SJM's writing. It's so comedic.
Yeah.
And you know what? Micah deserves to be stuck in a vacuum the rest of his
He does.
immortality or whatever.
And I'm not even going to ask what's the degree of burning that archangel bones burn at, because human bones can't be destroyed with just fire. You actually, the incineration process is a lot more. But we're going to pretend that this was a big fire.
Yeah. Or that the vacuum is strong enough to suck up shards of bone.
Yeah. That she's going to come back and turn into a necklace.
From my perspective, Micah's death is one last tribute to Lehabah. As Jack mentioned, one step in Micah's death process is for Bryce to set him on fire. Lehabah, the fire sprite, died by water to save Bryce from Micah. Therefore, of course, Micah must die by fire.
Oh, I love that.
And I just thought it was just really fitting retribution for the loss of Lehabah.
Yeah, I like that.
And before we move on to chapter 82, I want to go back to what you were talking about with the color red. There is lots of red in this scene. There's the red warning lights, the crimson shirt from the ruby bubbles of Micah's blood. There's the red gasoline container, the fire, which we think of as red, wrath and rage, which if you associate with a color is red.
Yep.
And that's what Bryce gets called as. Lehabah's red, Bryce's hair is red. And it just is like this, from my perspective, came across as this scene of power where these women, who also get associated with colors like red, have all the power.
Yeah.
This is Lehabah and Bryce coded all over through the use of color. And I thought that was really fantastic.
I'm going to apologize now. Killing him was red. Red. Maybe she's just a Red Album girly.
Maybe she is.
This is going to be a Taylor heavy episode.
That's all your fault.
No apologies.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Chapter 82 starts with Bryce understanding that snitches get stitches. And
sure
she tells the auxiliary, it's cool, you can leave. It was just a gas explosion. Talk about the awareness of information that shouldn't go out. Like the Asteri, she gets it. Like the Asteri wouldn't want to know this.
Mm-hmm.
No one should know this. Not so much. Like, I just killed. I just killed an archangel.
Praise me.
Can we get a little... Woo, woo. Yep. She's more humble about it. She would never.
Let them see your cards.
No, I'm only cards. I wear a dress of cards. But at this point, after she knows not to let them see her cards, Bryce takes up Syrinx, who is a source of comfort. She takes him to Jessica's office, sits down, and just kisses him and pets him and tells him that it's going to be okay. But she's not telling Syrinx that it's going to be okay. She's telling herself that it's going to be okay. And it just hurts my heart. And, just this sad image of her just sitting there petting him, being like, it's going to be okay. It's fine. And she's just waiting for the world to come after her.
Mm-hmm. Which I don't blame her. Like, I would expect to get caught too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because
they're watching.
I was going to say, the Asteri are watching. They are Big Brother.
Yeah.
After Syrinx is resting in Jessica's office, Bryce goes down into the gallery library to look for a trace of Lehabah. While Bryce sees that the knock is dead, there is no trace of Lehabah. Quote, not even a smudge of ash. And I can almost guarantee SJM knows nothing about, or let me not say nothing. SJM knows very little about the Mormon faith and some of the beliefs that they have. But this moment reminded me of this concept that we call translation. And I want to take a moment to talk about it because I thought it gave me warm feelings and when I think about Lehabah. So this concept of translation is that someone who is so good and so pure and so perfect is translated by God, which means they never have to taste death. They go instantly from mortality into their immortality, into their afterlife without experiencing death. Oh. And I was like, oh, it's Lehabah. There's no trace of her. She was translated.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that out there.
That's nice.
I was trying to find the hope because I didn't want to cry.
It's great. She's just gone.
She's just gone.
She's just gone. It sucks. It is sad. I just kind of breezed past it because I was like, I don't want to deal with her.
I could tell.
I was like, I'm not revisiting this. I've done my time. Because SJM is good, the synth has repaired Bryce. And when I say good, it's just so well done. The synth has come in. She's all patched up for the next fight.
Yeah. It's genius.
It's genius.
And we believe it.
Yeah. It's well, no, it all makes sense that it happened. Sometimes stories fall into the isn't it convenient category. And at its core, that's what writing is.
Yeah.
Every single book is going to be kind of convenient.
Yeah.
But to get there, when it all comes together, that's what matters. And SGM does it right. everything makes sense. Like, why was the antidote there? How did Bryce get healed so quickly? Like, why did she get stabbed with synth? And it's like, yes, it's convenience, but it's convenience that's been earned.
Yeah, and it's not like there weren't risks in the process, right?
Yeah.
The synth was going to make her go crazy and kill herself.
Yeah.
It just so happens it also happened to heal her. But if she hadn't had the antidote, she would have died.
Yep.
And in the last episode, we talked about how in every moment, Hunt was like, oh, she's healing in this area, but it's not healing fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
And Micah's still beating her up.
Yep.
So it didn't feel convenient during the fight.
No.
We just get to reap the rewards of it after the fight is over.
I mean, and it's just so funny how where it's like not a single, like she says, there isn't a single ounce of pain left in her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is all gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, good luck, girly, because
it's about to get worse.
The shit is about to hit the fan.
I felt like there was also a good use of irony in this scene when we're talking about the shit hitting the fan, because Bryce thinks, oh, the Ox are going to come get her.
Mm-hmm.
The Asteri know that Bryce has killed Micah. But that's not the case. Quote, she knew the world was coming. It would arrive on her doorstep soon. And she might very well burn for what she'd just done. A little bit later, she realized why no one had come for her, or for the horn inked in her flesh. They had far bigger problems to deal with. While Bryce expects the world to show up on her doorstep, nope, it's just hell. And the Asteri are going to send brimstone missiles to burn everyone. So yes, she will burn for what she did.
Yeah.
And, you know, so will everybody else. It's fine.
It is,
It's just a great use of irony, SJM. She's always good
No, I'm looking at it and I'm like, you're right. She does say will burn for what she's done. And I'm like, you're absolutely, that's really funny.
SJM knows what she's doing.
That's actually really hilarious. I did not catch that at all.
While all this is going on for Bryce, we also have a lot of chaos going on at the summit. Bryce has disrupted the power balance, and everyone is confused. From Hunt's point of view, he describes Bryce as treating Micah like, quote, spilled chips, which I thought was a great food as power moment. And then he even thinks of Bryce and Lehabah's ability to stop Micah as, quote, likely as a minnow slaying a shark. A minnow being a tiny fish.
Yeah.
Just some really good use of food, of animals to display this power disruption. In this chaos, everyone else is trying to get information or act like they're in charge, telling the Ox what to do, telling what everybody else to do, while Hunt gets to access his powers again through Hypaxia. I think it's also important to note that in this power disruption, Bryce, who is human, has now become a threat.
Yep.
Never was she considered a threat prior to this moment, but by killing Micah, obviously she is now, even though she doesn't have another Godslayer bullet, so how would she make that happen? I don't know. But because she's become a threat, her life is now threatened. And Rune says twice to Hunt and company, quote, they will kill her for this. And that is just something we get to absorb and then we're left hanging with.
It just feels like if Bryce had heard that, she'd just be like, add it to my list.
Yeah, they're going to kill me for so many things.
Right? Like, let's just keep going. The start of chapter 83 has Bryce being such a good pet mom.
Mm.
She runs off home to drop off Syrinx and give him a bowl of water and all the food. Like, you know, it's the type of little detail that I appreciate.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'd be like, wait, where's Syrinx?
Yeah.
What are you doing? But by her dropping him off, she's not just preparing Syrinx, she's preparing herself. And like, I hope she had a power bar. Some kind of protein.
She really needed it.
Just something to lead her up to this. And Bryce knows that she's about to go into battle and she needs to prepare. So she channels the two people who matter most. Quote, she raced to the roof, shrugging on Danica's leather jacket, then tying the Fendir family sword across her back. She tucked one of Hunt's handguns into the waist of her jeans, shouldered his rifle, and slid as many packets of ammo as she could into her pockets. Bryce is ready to take on the world, but she also needs the tools that were left for her. You know, like the fact that like she has Hunt's guns and Danica's jacket and her sword. And, you know, it's like, yay. You know,
she gets to bring her friends with her into battle.
Yeah, the weapons that kill together bring you together. But I also want to note, because I love catching little inconsistencies, because SJ doesn't have a lot of these like aggressive ones.
Yep.
Please note that she's wearing jeans here. And at first I was like, yes, you're changing into jeans, you know, getting into like more fighting ready and everything. And then later on, SJM describes them as leggings.
Yeah, which beginning in chapter 76, when this whole thing started, she was wearing athletic wear at the time.
Which makes sense that she would go home and change, though. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but to your point, she doesn't. Because she's wearing leggings later.
Yeah. So continuity error.
Sorry, SJM.
Yeah.
And sorry to that editor. I'm sure in addition to it will be fixed.
We see right away that the rich in the Vanir only look after themselves and have zero interest in humans, not surprising anyone. And they are described as being, quote, draped in finery and convinced of their right to live at the expense of others. And they start locking people out. And that's like, it's really sad when you think about it, that like everyone who is, quote, poor or unlucky enough to be on the streets, it was there in front of the ironclad walls of the city's richest citizens that the Ox had been ordered to go to protect the already safe. And it just, you know, it makes me think about even in LA, you drive around Beverly Hills, cops at every place, and they'll like smile and wave and everything if you look a certain way, obviously.
Right.
They'll do like drive-bys for kids' parties to honk and just be like, happy birthday and stuff. You go anywhere else in LA, they're not there.
No.
And it makes me sad because that's such a real world thing.
Yeah.
And like, no wonder Bryce has extra fuel of hatred and resentment for everyone here in the other books. And I kind of like forget just how traumatic this moment must have been for her, that she sees everyone being locked out, that she is freaked out and is like trying to help people, and seeing this cruelty of the Vanir, of the rich, to lock out the poor, the humans. I think I forgot that when I read book 3.
Yeah, and I think that unfortunately is a product of time and having so much time between the books.
Yeah.
If you read them as they came out, because I forgot it too, and I didn't have as much time, right? I read both Earth and Blood and Sky and Breath at the same time, or right after each other. So, but in 2 years, I forgot how traumatic this is, that she sees people like herself who are left to die to be killed by demons and later to be hit by brimstone missiles.
Yeah. She has zero, like, she sees just how little compassion there is. So, like, no wonder she makes the choices that she does in the next 2 books.
Yeah.
So, reminding myself that before
we go into Sky and Breath.
Yeah. And if I get mean, not mean, critical.
So a lot of this, of Bryce going to help humans running through the city and fighting demons, is told from Hunt's perspective, watching through the cameras that Declan is pulling up at the summit, which is convenient, but we've known since the beginning that there are cameras all over the city.
Yeah, she does do a good job of that being from the very first chapter.
Exactly. So this does seem believable to me, that they're able to follow her through the cameras through the city. Hunt, I think, marvels at her prowess, but at the same time, you can almost tell in this moment that he really, really, really doesn't want her to be out there.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't really care about anyone else except her, and I think that's important.
Because that goes into book 2 and 3.
Exactly. So I did want to point that out, because it does do a lot to set up their relationship dynamic and the struggles that they're going to have in the next 2 books.
You're absolutely right. He's not watching her being like, good job, baby. Like, I mean, obviously he wants her safe. I'm not saying that it's wrong of him to want that for her, but again, Bryce will run into danger. Hunt's asking her not to.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Because I'm an Autumn King truther, I want to look at this moment. Quote, But Rune ordered his father, pull our forces from Phiro, send them to where they're needed. The Autumn King's jaw worked, but he said, the protocols are in place for a reason. We will not abandon them to chaos. CC3, spoiler. It feels a little guiltish. Like, it's almost as if he has his hands tied. That was me. When I first read it, when I second read it, and when I read it now, I'm still like, he just says it in a way like the protocols are there for a reason, as in the Asteri reason, as in it's like, hey, son, I don't get a choice of this, you know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I just saw your note.
I feel like I disagree. This is the joy of me being able to write my notes second for the first time in a long time. So I do disagree. I feel like
Sorry, I don't know what song this is.
How can you not tell my melodic voice is Taylor Swift? Like Sabine, right now, in this moment, the Autumn King is not only sticking to protocols, but using the protocols as an excuse, because that's all they know. That's their way of living. Just like it is that the Asteri are all they know, and they're okay with the status quo because it protects people like them. I think there's a lot of chaos in the room happening right now, and what we see forming is the side of people who disobey the protocols versus those who keep them.
Yeah.
And that's creating a very, very clear division in my mind. And it's very reflective of the end of the series. Who are the ones that are disobeying protocol right now, or who are telling people to disobey protocol? Hunt, Rune, Hypaxia, Declan, Flynn, Isaiah, Therian, and even Ithan. And who are the ones that are keeping the protocols? Sabine and the King.
Yeah, but who lives? Everyone else. Because they're good. No. I mean, obviously we know that I get what you're saying. I'm just still not entirely convinced.
No, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. I just didn't see the remorse.
Yeah, and there's
the way
not,
you do.
and there's not like, mine's more of like a question.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah.
You know, like there wasn't the fact that it wasn't an immediate shut up where this is what we're doing. The fact that there was a pause.
You saw room for.
I saw room.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm, like I said, I'm a truther. I'm like a grainy photo of a Yeti in the distance. And I'll be like, yes, that's the Autumn King.
That's the Sasquatch.
That's the Autumn King. Autumn King is Sasquatch. Like, give me a tin hat. I am. I'm an Autumn King truther.
Good for you.
Thank you. Bryce is out here single-handedly kicking ass. Quote, there, racing through the streets in Danica's leather jacket, sword in one hand and gun in the other, was Bryce. Duck/shoot. She was moving like she trained with the ox her entire life. Bryce kept running, kept firing. She did not miss. Just she did not miss. It gave me chills. And like the idea of sword in one hand and a gun in the other. And it's that balance between Hunt and Danica with her. And even Randall, because he's the one who taught her how to shoot.
And also kind of the balance between Fae and human.
Yeah.
Because the sword represents that older side.
Yeah. Now, so this is my question for you. I know she starts with a handgun. We get that. She throws the handgun at one point at a demon because she runs out. And then she talks about having a rifle. And, okay, I'm putting an imaginary rifle in my left hand right now, and I'm holding a sword with my right hand right now. Amy.
Yeah, I'm looking.
You weren't before.
But I'm imagining in my head.
Okay. Why imagine? We could just look at me. But like, I've shot a rifle before.
So
how does that work?
I spent a lot of time thinking about this. A lot of time. So you are correct. She starts with a handgun, which as a semi-automatic, easy to shoot.
Yep.
With one hand. As for the rifle, hard but not impossible. If it has a pump like a shotgun barrel, and I know this because my brothers have done it a lot and I've done it too, you can pump the barrel with one hand and then bring it up. But how do you get to the trigger? So like the pumping the barrel with one hand isn't possible.
Necessarily the hardest part. It's
right. It's the getting to the trigger part and be able to balance the gun and aim. That's the hard part.
Because even with the pumping, I have like my arm extended right now and I'm like, like half shimming.
You can go like this. Yeah. So
but then you have to move your hand down for
I need to describe my hand movements, and I'm going to hold my cell phone as if it's a sword to help demonstrate.
Shall I record this?
Only if you want to.
I absolutely want to.
How about I use my slipper?
Okay.
I'm trying to think. Okay, no. Cell phone is sword. Slipper is rifle.
Okay, so you have your slipper over your sword hand.
So yeah, I imagine...
Your slipper. You have a rifle over your sword.
So I imagine that if she's holding the sword, that she would bring it down to balance the barrel of the rifle on her wrist.
Yeah.
So that she could pull the trigger.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
You can see that?
I can see that better.
Because then you can... This arm can continue to hold the sword. It just needs to come up to balance the barrel of the rifle.
All right. You sold it.
Thanks.
I'm on board. Good job.
As I said, I thought a lot about this.
Did you think about it before I asked the question?
No, I only thought about it because the question was there.
I feel better knowing. I feel good.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I'm glad I could do that for you.
No, you did. You solved a problem for me.
I would like to remind us for a moment that in addition to having Danica and Hunt's weapons, the guns that Bryce uses bring Hunt's, quote, cedar and rain scent, which wrapped around her. Not only is she essentially carrying Hunt and Danica into battle with her by carrying their weapons, she's also embodying them physically. She's wearing Danica's leather jacket. Mm-hmm. She's surrounding herself with Hunt's scent. So it's like she brought them.
Yeah.
But she's also become them.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool.
That's nice.
That's nice.
That's nice. That's lovely. All right. Hypothetical. Mm-hmm. I'm alive in this situation. Mm-hmm. I'm at the summit, and you're ready to like go out to battle, and you're like, I need to channel Jack because like I'm a weapons master in this hypothetical. What item do you grab of mine?
Machete.
Okay, that's good answer.
What did you think I was going to say? Taylor Swift album.
I thought like one of my Taylor Swift sweatshirts or something.
No,
but I forgot I do in fact have a machete.
I don't know why that was a question.
I was imagining Danica's jacket, but I forgot I'm actually practical. In this situation, I actually am a weapons master.
You are a weapons master. It's probably under your pillow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chapter 84 starts with everyone back at the summit watching Bryce kicking ass. And the Fae will not go and help. Sabine says there aren't any wolves left to help, and quote, but the prime of the wolves had stirred at last and pointed an ancient gnarled finger to the screen, to the feeds, and he said, one wolf remains in the old square. His hand curled onto his chest. A wolf. He tapped his heart. A true wolf. And this concept's going to come back into play, right? That Bryce is a wolf, that she is part of them. Bryce was accepted into the pack through Danica when Danica was alive, but the death of Danica wasn't just the death of a friend, it was death of a pack that Bryce was a part of. And now here she is being accepted on her own right and her own merit, nothing to do with Danica other than her sword and jacket. But it's, it's here she is being a part of it. And Ithan describes that in a few pages. He talks about the jackals, the wolves, the coyotes, the wild dogs, like all of the canines are out there to defend, and they're there to defend and protect those who can't, just like Bryce can.
And I love this moment because it really brings home for me why SJM uses the image of a wolf in all of her series.
Yep.
And this is also where I can tell that SJM is more a dog person than she is a cat person, because she made a Prince of Hell a cat, and she's only ever using wolves as strong.
He is a
symbols.
cat daddy.
He is a cat daddy.
Thank you very much.
However, she definitely prefers her wolves.
That's understandable.
I love, though, that at the end of the day, she uses this wolf imagery in all of her series, and ties it to the people who are ultimately the protectors.
Yep.
Think of Feyre considering herself a wolf.
And her water wolves.
Her water wolves protecting Valaris. We have here Bryce is a wolf. Her friends that are wolves that are protecting those who can't be protected. And it's just, it gives me chills because, SJM, why are you so skillful?
I don't know.
Makes me mad sometimes.
Damn it. I mean, kind of going back into it, like, she's just so good, and she's good at adding drama to a scene. Quote, she wove around abandoned cars as she crossed the border into Asphodel Meadows. The sun began to set, as if Solus himself was abandoning them. It takes so little to drive a point home, and by itself, it kind of might sound dramatic, but, like, in the scene of everything that's happening and everything that's led to it, it's perfect. And for the writers out there, I just want to say, don't be afraid to be a little dramatic.
Lean in.
Lean into the drama. That's why I like hockey. It's just so dramatic. You're going to see, when we go to our first hockey game, you and me, Amy, you'll hear my chant at the beginning of every hockey game, which is drama. Not even joking. I do that every time. Oh my
gosh.
Okay, so I cried taking notes, but I'm not going to cry now. I don't have it in me. I feel nice and cold inside, so we're set. Ithan says that he's coming to help through the intercom to Bryce. And, like, Bryce can hear it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I've done this with my family where it's like, I'll call my mom, and then my cousin calls my mom. And I'm like, oh, put me on the phone with my cousin. And then the two phones will come next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we could just three-way call, but that's not what we choose. So, quote, Bryce's bloodied face crumpled as she whispered, Ithan? Bryce, I'm coming. Hang on, we're all coming. Okay, so when I was taking the notes, I did cry a little bit for that one. It just destroyed me. It was sad.
It was sad.
But, like, that was also the first time I cried since Lehabah died, because that's, like, the first time that she hasn't felt alone. Because she doesn't know that people are watching her. She doesn't know that Rune and Hunt and all of them are cheering her on. You know, she just, the most she said to Jessica was, did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
She said yes. So she has not a clue.
Yeah.
She's truly alone out there, and Ethan's got her.
Finally, little bitch boy that he is, I apologize. It is really touching that he comes to her aid, and it makes me have a lot of hope for Ethan's character and whatever we might see in the future of him, because he is kind of a letdown for a little bit.
I mean, it's like, good for you. You decided to not be an asshole during Armageddon.
Right, exactly.
Like,
woohoo!
The apocalypse is basically happening. Hell has come to this earth, but, like, good job for not being a dick.
Right. It's
and
kind of
stepping up when you should. No, I get it.
I also have to talk, though, about an Ithan breadcrumb, and I'm going to do my best to not say too much about Flame and Shadow, just in case we have any listeners who still haven't finished reading it. However, knowing what we know about Flame and Shadow, I want to read this quote. And mind you, this one scene, this one teeny tiny, like, half page, I think is the first and only time we get Ethan's point of view in this book.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is important.
Yeah.
Quote, Ithan Holstrom sprinted toward Asphodel Meadows with the weight of that history, that being the history of canines, behind him, burning in his heart. This is all happening right after Bryce is called a wolf by the Prime, and Ithan is the only other wolf shifter to recognize Bryce for her heart. I think it's significant knowing what we know.
Yep, it is.
When you tie it to the fact that the Prime is like, Bryce is a wolf, and Ithan is like, I feel it too.
Why did you make it sound sexual?
I didn't mean to.
You're kind of like, your whole body jerked a little bit. I feel it too. What were your hands doing? What are your hands doing now?
I'm sorry. Clutching my boobs. Stop it! Stop it! She's doing an inside joke thing that just makes me laugh harder.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Tune in Thursday for part 2, where we finish covering this week's chapters.
We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon, Ko-Fi, or Venmo. Bye! To wreak havoc on the remaining archangel before he leaves to save Bryce.
I know, it was really long. I tried to make it shorter. Oh well.
I'm just so flummy, too.
It's because...
The pokey.
Yeah. We always do this to ourselves.
I know. Think of me. Think of me fondly.
I'm not encouraging this because I know this is going to go at the end of the episode.
I didn't think. I thought I could tempt you.
Instead, I'm going to make my Amazon purchase.
Really? What about this? It's burn.
Damn it. No.
Say it.
No. I refuse.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.